Today, we're going to take a look as to how do we multiply polynomials. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we're multiplying polynomials. It is important to be organized, and that is we're going to be multiplying constants with constants and variables with variables. Now, we're going to see two methods here. The first method is something called a tabular method, which some people refer to it as just the box method. So let's see, how can we multiply polynomials using the box method? Well, here we see example 1. They're asking us to multiply 6b times 2b plus 3. So the first thing that you should do is to look how many terms you have in each expression. So notice here that in the first expression, we have one term. And in the second expression, we have two terms. So 2b and 3. So what you need to do is we're going to create some kind of a box according to the dimensions of what we're multiplying. That is, the first is going to give you how many columns are you going to have, and the second expression is going to give you how many rows. So here, we're going to create some kind of a box that has one column, because that's how many terms there is on the first one, and we're going to create two rows, because on the second expression we have two. So now that we have our box, you're going to put your 6b here, you're going to put your 2b here, and you're going to put your 3 here. So this is just the setup here. All we did, we just set it up. Now, what you need to do now is to figure out what goes inside the boxes. To figure out what goes inside the boxes, we got to multiply the expressions where they meet. So notice that here, 6b meets with the 2b. So we're going to multiply those two, 6b times 2b, and that's going to give us 12. b squared. And now to find out this number, we need to multiply the 6b times 3, which gives us 18b. The last thing that you should do is to just write down the numbers that you found out inside the box. So that's going to give us 12b squared plus 18b. And this is your final answer. Now let's take a look at the second example here, or example B. In example B, again, notice here we're going to have one column and two rows again. So let's create our box here. One column with two rows. Here's our column with two rows. On the column, we're going to put the 7. And on the rows, we're going to be placing the -5 and the -8. Excellent. So this is just the setup. Now we need to figure out what goes inside those boxes. So now we multiply. 7 times -5b, that's -35. Okay, -35b. And now we're going to multiply -8 times 7, which gives us -56. So again, last thing that you should do, you should just rewrite the numbers outside, because there's going to be times where once you write them out outside, you can see if you need to combine any like terms. Notice that here, there's nothing to combine because the first term has a b and the second one doesn't. So this is our final answer because we cannot combine any like terms. So now let's talk about example C. We're still using the tabular method, but notice that this is a little bit different because now here we're going to have two columns and we're going to have two rows. So let's do our box with that dimension. So here we have a box with two columns and two rows, where in the first space we're going to put the first term, which is 2n, and the second space we're going to place our second term, which is just the 2. Now here on the side, we're going to put 6n here, and we're going to place the 1 here. Excellent. So now that we have this, we need to figure out what goes inside those boxes. So now to figure out this number, we're going to multiply 2n times 6n. So that's going to give us 12n squared. And now to figure out this number, 6n times 2, so that's going to give us 12n. So now we have 1 times 2n, which is just regular 2n, and 2 times 1, which is just 2. Now again, let's just rewrite those which are outside, just rewrite them here. N squared, now the second one, which is 12n, the third one, which is just 2n, and the last one, which is just 2. Notice that here, we can combine these two terms. So we can simplify it as the following. Once you combine them, that becomes 14n, and then you gotta add the 2 because we have not done anything to it. So this is your final answer. So these are just some examples of something called the tabular method. There's also another way for you to multiply, and that is the distribution method, which some of you might know it as just regular FOIL. So let's just review two examples. Now, how do we multiply expressions using the FOIL method? You're gonna get the first term, and you need to distribute to every single term on the other expression here. So now we're gonna multiply 4n, and for n, I need to multiply by 2n. And if we do that correctly, we're gonna have 8n squared. And if we multiply that again, now we're gonna have 4n times 6. 4 times 6, that gives us 24. And there's nothing to multiply, so it just carries on. So we're done distributing the first. Now we gotta distribute the second term, which is 1. So we multiply 1 times 2n. That's gonna give us 2n. And 1 times 6, that's gonna give us just 6. Notice that your last step should always be the same, which is there anything that you can combine? Well, let's see. Notice here that the only terms that we can combine are just these two, 24 and 2. So now your final answer just becomes 8n squared plus 26, not just 6. So 26 and plus 6. So just lastly, let's just look at another quick example here. How can we multiply the following? You gotta distribute. So what are we going to distribute? The 7, I need to distribute to everything. So 7 times negative 5b, that's going to give us negative 35b. And 7 times negative 8, that's going to give us negative 56. Is there anything that you can combine here? Nope, there's not. So this is your final answer. So now, here's your entrance ticket. In the first example, multiply the following using the tabular method, which again, you can think of it as just the box method. In the second example, just use regular distribution.